Hey everybody, my name is Kieran. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I like to help people using a spiritual perspective, which I believe it goes into a more in-depth way of solving problems. Today I wanted to talk about letting go of old habits, things that no longer serve you, things that are really holding you back in your life, whereas otherwise, if they weren't there, you might be miles or kilometers for the rest of the world ahead, right? So I wrote down 3 different ways to let go of what no longer serves you. The first one that I put was detachment. I actually just put detach, but detachment makes more sense. So, detaching, how I like to think about it, is to see yourself from a bird's eye view, to see yourself from like a camera way above in the clouds, looking at yourself, looking at your actions, and how you would go about doing your daily routine, your business, or how you would go about doing this particular bad habit, whatever it may be. It could be something as simple as biting your nails, or something with larger ramifications, such as a particular drug use, porn addiction, alcohol, all sorts of things. When you look at yourself from a detached point of view and look at how you're doing this specific action that's harming you, you start to see yourself as if you're watching somebody in a movie. Like if you've ever seen a horror movie and you're looking at the characters make the stupidest decisions, like, how they go into a room, or they just decide to all split up, or one's like, oh, this will be a good idea, I'll go into a dark room and I'll be safe, or whatever the hell's going through their head, right? So you start to look at like that, like those characters. You start to like, because with those types of movies and stuff like that, you're like screaming at the movie. You're basically like, what the hell is wrong with you? This person is stupid. And it doesn't have to be just a horror movie, but if you've ever like even watched anybody in any video, even regardless of the movie, and wondered what the hell they were thinking, why would they do something so silly? If you can start looking at your actions, these negative behaviors like that, you start to see them in a different light. It gives you a little bit more power when you start to realize that the things that you think are really holding you back are something as simple as just making a different choice. And really, it all comes down to your thoughts. Your thoughts are what is holding that addiction into place, thinking that it's supposed to be there, right? Thinking that the addiction is part of who you are. But detaching allows you to see that there is more than just your thoughts, there is more than just your actions. You can see yourself above yourself, and you can really start to look at what it is that's making you do these things. And you can start to give yourself a little bit more power when you start to see that yourself as more of like an actor in your own life, someone that you are actually in control of, not somebody that you're a slave to. Like, you're not a slave to your actions, you're actually somebody that's the driving force behind them. The only difference in that truly is just a perspective change, and just a way of looking at yourself differently and seeing yourself from a more objective point of view. This, especially for me, usually helps in allowing myself to calm down, to put a hold on the addictions, the old habits, the negative behaviors, things like that, which allows me to move forward with more grace, knowing that I'm simply an actor in my own life, that I have more control than I think I do, and that ultimately it just comes down to a little shift in realizing that the power lies within me, not within the addictions itself. So this can be really confusing though, in the way of how do you go about carrying that out. Most people, I think, it's at some level, know that the addictions, they shouldn't be doing them. They're better than that, right? They're better than the addictions. Most people are always thinking that they're better than what might currently be in the way, the obstacles. Usually, the failure, and then the consequences of that failure, however you might deal with it, stop you from ever making any real progress. Always like, failing, never truly getting rid of that addiction. So what I wrote down for number 2 was replace the old with the new. And this is what I think really hit the nail on the head for me in my own personal life in giving up old patterns and behaviors, was to replace that old behavior with something new. So what I would always do, and what I notice a lot of other people do, is they try to quit something cold turkey. And I never have even used that expression in my life. So that's incredibly embarrassing for me because I only thought that old people said that, but here I am. So people tend to do this, quit these things cold turkey. Just they think they can cut it off completely and that they'll be able to go on about their lives. But what that does, what I've noticed, is that getting rid of something like, cigarettes or whatever addiction it is, drugs, alcohol, trying to quit that immediately, trying to get rid of that just because you have the thought of doing it, often results in a void. It creates, well, it doesn't create anything. Getting rid of something leaves you with nothing to replace that feeling or whatever that addiction was, to replace that way of being, that thing. So, quite simply, if you get rid of something and then there's a blank state, there's a void in which there's nothing there to fill that gap, you perpetuate a cycle, because then you're in this void, you're in this gap, you're in this dark space, and you're like, oh, well, I've given it up for a week, but there's nothing new here, there's nothing satisfying. I thought I could do it. Ah, shit, I'm going back to what I was doing before, because that's what you have, that's what you know. So when you don't have anything new to replace the old, you create a void for yourself. You create this chasm of darkness that you can't seem to escape from. And so the only way to actually escape from the darkness when you don't have anything new is to go back to the things that were actually holding you back. And this creates escapism in your head, and this is what escapism is. It's not having that new thing that is better than the old. So in order to really transition between the two states of old and new, you need to have something, like a wheel turning, that will keep you moving forward. You need to have something that will be readily available in your daily life, like a routine, even if the routine is something simple like a new thought every day. And this will perpetuate a motion, a positive forward motion, away from whatever it was that was holding you back. So, in my own personal life, just to give an example, I used to smoke weed every day. Now, I don't really have a problem with weed. Weed? Did I say weed the first time? I don't know. Sounded weird, though. I don't really have a problem with weed. Sometimes I still occasionally smoke it, usually like once a month. It's sort of like a spiritual type of thing. I'll like relax and just listen to music and think about things. I'll get downloads, write them down, and that's about it. But I used to smoke them. I used to smoke it every day for maybe a couple months, and it created a little lethargic, depressing state. And I didn't want to do it, but I kept doing it. I didn't create anything new in the meantime. Between that, I tried quitting it over and over and over again, just thinking that this is going to do it. This is the time. Sometimes getting, 2 days, 3 days, a week, and then it would always just be like, oh, fuck it. And then I'd just go back and smoke it and be in that state of depressing, stuck energy again, because I wasn't creating anything new. There was no forward momentum. So eventually, what happened with me was I just discovered rock climbing. I never really knew that I would like it. I just decided one day that what would be cool would be to to climb the surrounding mountains that surround my town. They have like boulders and rocks and stuff, and they have a lot of like hiking trails that aren't necessarily trails open to the public, but you can just climb it if you wanted to. And I remember visiting the town that I live in now as a kid before I lived here, and thinking to myself, oh, what I'll do is I'll go and climb those mountains one day. I made like a little promise to myself. And then one day I just happened upon this trail when I was driving. I decided, you know what? I'll go out, I'll climb it. And by the time I got to the top, I realized that I had completed some sort of childhood dream. And it was such an exhilarating feeling. And that feeling created a new sort of momentum. And that allowed me to, in a way, find a new positive thing in my life that replaced the feeling of being stuck. And replacing that feeling, replacing that energy, suddenly gave me a newfound little zest and a little bite, something a little bit better than what was. And I started to notice that I didn't really feel like smoking weed anymore. It was very natural. I didn't have to convince myself to smoke it, because often when you have an addiction, a lot of it is a little voice in your head convincing you to do the thing that you know that you shouldn't do, because there's not enough life in your actual life. There's not enough zest or passion or drive in order for you to combat that negative sort of mind, the negative little ego voice inside your head. But when you have the new things, when you replace them, you actually find out that you don't need those things anymore, and that the voice in your head that might have before been telling you to do something like, smoke the weed, drink the alcohol, spend all your money on this, whatever, you actually find that voice talking to you and directing you into more positive actions. And that's, also helps with the detachment, is detaching from the voice in the first place, realizing that you're something greater than the voice inside your head. And this gives you more power. So those two things really go hand in hand. And that's why detachment is a great first step. And a second step, which I'm talking about now, is of course creating something new. I also like swimming. I used to do it as a kid a lot. I started doing it again recently. That's really given me a lot of helpful energy, something more positive, so that when I do the things that might not, that people shouldn't be doing every day, sort of thing, it gives it a more sort of enjoyment feel. Like if you struggle with a diet, for instance, when you get rid of those sort of diet that you might have been eating that's hurting your body, then if you're eating a lot of sugary foods, cookies, snacks, soda, whatever it is, and you replace that with other things and not try and quit it all at once, gradually, over like 3 or 4 weeks, you'll discover that you don't really need those things anymore and you don't want them anymore. Like I used to drink soda all the time. And, gradually I just started like doing new things, creating new experiences for myself. And eventually, like I just stopped wanting it at all. I didn't have to convince myself to drink soda or Coke or anything. So now, very occasionally, maybe like once every 2-3 months, I might have a root beer because it was like my favorite soda. I just love root beer. It's just me. And even then, that's kind of like, it makes me feel gross, So now I just stick to like water and juices and stuff like that. So for number 3, I put down understanding your habits and shadow work. Now I'm going to start with shadow work first, even though that's the latter half of my point. But shadow work, in my own words, is basically a way of detailing, journaling, looking at the darker behaviors of your psyche, looking at those parts of yourself that you might have otherwise repressed and tried to hide away because you feel that they make you weak or wounded, or whatever it is. You don't look at them in a positive light. They're usually childhood wounds, which is pretty much where all of our inner pain comes from, some memory of being a child, something that happened to us. Sometimes it's not very significant, sometimes we don't think it's significant, and vice versa for both. So that's what shadow work is. It's just a way, journaling things down, looking at it, meditating on it type of stuff. And understanding your habits is, of course, a part of that. So when you look at your habits and the things that you want to let go of, you notice that there's usually some sort of pattern, there's usually some sort of root cause, root feeling that is always attached itself to the particular addiction that you're going through. So like with me, with the I've struggled with diet as well in my life, so we'll even just keep going with the diet thing. I remember the diet used to come as a kid as an emotional fulfilling cycle type of thing, right? So when I was a kid, my parents weren't, especially my mother, was not very good at dealing with emotions as a child. They weren't good at being parents, really. They just were not like emotionally available. So if I had a problem as a kid, as kids do, if I was crying, upset about something, it was never their answer was never to talk to me or to help me express myself or to be supportive. It was to give me something to sort of shut me up, right? So if I had, and I remember a specific memory one time of just like needing help and crying as like a 10-year-old or something. I think there was like a bully in the neighborhood. I can't really remember that well. Probably all the weed. And eventually it got to a point where I was just like bawling my eyes out type of thing, and went to my mother and she gave me an ice cream sandwich. You know what I mean? Like that was the type of parenting that I got. The parenting that I got was in the form of dairy treats, which, I love dairy, but not for the right reasons. And that's where the diet, that's where that came from for me, all that struggle, was I started to realize, especially recently, after doing shadow work and stuff, that a lot of the diet and those types of behaviors were coming from that specific memory, like a lot of things like that, those kinds of experiences as a child. And, I started to realize that every time that I was sad, I would eat. And you start to realize, well, oh, like I'm eating because I'm not actually letting myself be sad. I'm not looking at myself. I'm not thinking about why I'm sad. I'm not trying to help myself as you would a kid. I was just trying to stuff away that sadness with some sort of food, because that's a subconscious sort of way of dealing with the pain. And that's what shadow work is, and that's why understanding those types of habits, whatever it may be, is really, really important, because you're able to look at it and find some sort of reason, somewhere you can start. It doesn't even matter if you're not 100% sure that that's the memory, because all memories are going to be a little bit scattered. But if you can find something that you can just resonate with in your own life, it's most likely true, at least most of it, and you can work with it. You can find it, you can discover what it is, and you can start building from it. And it's really important to pay attention to what that feeling, what the addiction, what the habit does to you, why what it is that it is that I should just start that sentence over again. Holy shit. It's really important to discover what feeling that addiction makes you have, what kind of feeling it's creating. Like, does it make you feel safe? Is it a sort of running away type of thing? What feeling are you running away from that the addiction is there to replace? Like, again, the diet was sadness. I was trying to run away from sadness, so the food made me feel better, right? Even though it wasn't a healthy, it's a toxic sort of soothing type of thing. But if you can find out what feelings are there, what's in the way, you can better help yourself get over that sort of hump, right? So, and it all just really flows together really well. Like, you detach from it, and it allows you to see yourself in a better light, in a more powerful light, in a way in which you might think that you're actually able to control your actions rather than have your actions control you, and to control your thoughts rather than have your thoughts control you, which will allow you to see things more clearly in an efficient way, giving you better insights and giving you more natural ways to transition between a bad habit into a new habit, helping you very, very naturally to find new things. Like I said, the rock climbing, I did not try and find rock climbing, it found me. So you just, it goes into the flow. And at the same time, when you're doing these types of things, if you can just really understand your habits, journaling them, writing about what it is that they make you feel, what memories you think they're coming from, and, it's not even that much effort, truly. Detaching is simply like laying in bed or sitting and just, breathing, really. It's like kind of a meditative type of thing. And replacing the old with the new is just going about your life, truly. You can and understanding your habits and writing them down, journaling, is about 20 minutes a day. Even if that 10 minutes is a nice little chunk too. So it's really not even that much work. And the last thing I wrote, which isn't another way of letting go, but it is a bonus thought that I was having. And I suppose I could just read it word for word, because I don't know, it's easier, I suppose. But I put, your addictions are a ball you refuse to release, like a ball in your hand, right? A little squishy ball, right? Because we give power to the ball, not ourselves. The habits that you do are not inherently evil. It is simply your attitude about them that creates that addiction, creates that pain. And really what I'm trying to say here is, when you have this addiction, like a ball in your hand, and you're looking at it like it's some sort of evil, inherently bad thing, it actually makes it really, really hard to let go of, because this bad, evil thing has been the thing that you have attached your pain and suffering to. You've made this ball responsible for your well-being. So again, with the diet, it's like you're looking at all the foods that you're eating, and you're going, damn, if only this wasn't here, if only this shitty, disgusting habit wasn't here, I would be better. Everything would be fine, but it's still here and it's in the way. And that doesn't allow you to let it go. That doesn't allow you to freely move on from it. You're still focusing on it because you're hating it. Hating is attachment. It's actually harder to hate something than it is to love, or at least be neutral about. It's the energy that you put into it. Because having a diet, eating snacks, having an ice cream sandwich, drinking a beer, smoking a joint, those aren't inherently evil. Even the things that are like that will you know kill you eventually, or could even on the first time using them, like harder drugs, heroin, opioids, stuff like that, cocaine, whatever. Those things aren't inherently evil. They're just things. They don't have any, like, they don't have opinions about you. They just exist, right? They just exist in the world. They're not inherently evil. What makes them, how we view them could be inherently evil, and we might have justifications for why they're worse than certain other products. And that's all fine and dandy. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you see something as bad and negative and hateful, you become attached to it, and you have this ball in your hand that you just can't let go of because you're so like invested in how much it's hurting you. And if you can just force yourself to look at the ball, detach from it, realize why you're holding on to it, and try to replace it with something else, you can actually just like let it go in a very natural way, in a way that you don't have to go back to, in a way where you just let the ball go, hits the ground, you barely hear it make a sound, and you just keep moving. And another day you'll have another thing that you got to let go of, and it'll be much easier. And other times you won't have anything to let go of, and you'll just invite all of this new awesome energy into you, which of course usually comes when you just let go of the old. So those are like 3 or 4 ways, just some little insights that I had. I thought I would write down and share with you guys. If you guys like it, if it was helpful, please leave a comment. If it wasn't, I don't know what to tell you. Go watch somebody else, I guess. All right. Thank you guys. It's really an honor to be doing this, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.